Hi, welcome to my free Java video course, Lesson 9. My name is Markus Biel. In this video, I would like to introduce you to arrays. Arrays are also a very cool feature of many programming languages, and they also appear in Java. I kind of unofficially introduced them already in the last video, where I mainly talked about loops, and we stopped when I said there is one more loop, the for each loop, that is specifically designed for arrays and collections. So today I'm going to introduce you to arrays at least, and so we can also see the for each loop then. However, as always, first of all, let's repeat what I showed you about loops so far. So let's start with the first loop, the for loop. As said before, the style here is a bit weird. By the way, I always say style. What I actually mean is syntax. This is called the syntax. So the syntax is everything, the rules that define what you write down. I just wanted to be easy on you and not introduce weird phrases. But anyway, let's introduce this now. So this is the syntax. So the syntax here is a bit weird because we start with defining an int, and maybe we should make it like this to make it more readable. And we assign it 0 because in programming we start counting at 0, which I find also a bit confusing, but believe me, over time you will get used to it. So anyway, because we want to create 4 person objects here in this loop, and we start with 0, the condition that defines when we stop looping is set to smaller than 4, which, by the way, I mean, we have also introduced booleans already. So this, of course, when it's calculated, will return a boolean. So you can put any boolean or method that returns a boolean at this place here. And the last one, also, you can put any statement, but of course it makes sense to have a counter here because we need a way to exit the loop, and as we started with 0, we increment I by 1 with a plus plus. We will stop as soon as I is not smaller than 4, which of course is when I is 4. I've also, by the way, now I'm only creating the object. This is also fine because we're not doing something with it, so we don't need a reference variable to access the person. I also wanted to show you once that this is also possible. Might not make sense in many cases, but here we're only interested in counting the times that we call this constructor. So for this little example, it's fine. Then the second loop, here, when you really iterate through something and you count, it's not so suitable anymore, but I wanted to show you that it's just usable for this case too. We have to define the variable before. I used j now because I have I here. Same condition, j should be smaller than 4. I call the person constructor once, and I increment j plus plus by 1. And so I iterate through this loop, the while loop, 4 times. When I'm done, I mean, considering that before I created 4 person objects or called this constructor 4 times, now I've set this to 8. And the third loop, the do while loop, I mean, actually, this is the least important one, but when you see other people's code, you might see it, and so that you don't get too confused, at least I would mention it. You can say do new person, so it's more or less the same. The only difference is because you have the while at the end, you start with a do, and you need a colon here so that Java knows that the statement is finished. When the colon is not there, you will have, see the red underline, this is an exception, so this doesn't work. You need the colon there. I think this is a bit awkward also for as a beginner, but yeah, you have to get used to it. Now let's check that this also actually works. Well, I've done it beforehand just to be on the safe side, so it should be working, yes, and see, we have the green bar as expected. Okay, so these were the three loops, sorry, that I introduced so far. I'm going to introduce you to the for each loop very soon, but for this we need to talk about arrays first. So first question would be, what is an array? Now, I talked so many times about arrays, but I didn't say what it is. Not so easy to explain. You have to try to think about this a bit, and yeah, because it's a bit of theory. The thing is, here with the loops, what we did is we created a few persons, and then I told you, I mean, now we don't even have a variable anymore, but we can of course change that. Let's put it here, person. Now, the last time I said we can, because we defined the person variable here. Now, when we assign the object of person to this variable, we can still access the last object created, but we cannot actually access all the other ones. They're lost somehow. So we need a way to not lose the objects created. And then also, I would like to be able to iterate over a number of persons that are already created, and then I would like to say something like persons dot do something like first person. Let's call it first person or second person, and then do something on each person that I have in this collection. And now I already said collection, and this is already very close to arrays. So an array is really like a container, a box, or let's say a list. So an array is also an object, is a data construct that can hold a number of primitive data types or objects. And as I already said, box, so for person, the way we define it is with these square brackets, which symbolizes something like a box, I think, which is easy to remember because we will put our persons kind of in here, we could think. And because this container will hold a number of persons, I will call this variable persons. Okay, and now I say new person, but now there comes something new again. I don't use the regular brackets, I again use the square brackets. This does not call the person constructor. This would be done like this and should not be working. Yeah, there's already a red underline. So I'm not calling any constructor here. This is a specific syntax that says create me an array of type person that can hold a number of persons, and we have to now give the number, which is 4. There was still a red underline, now it's gone. So now Java knows we want an array of type person that can hold 4 persons. Same thing we can do with int. Int. By the way, on a Mac, you have to press Alt 5, Alt 6 for the square brackets. So int, let's say my ints equals to new int, which is also, int is a primitive, but now I say new int because I'm not creating an int, I'm creating an object, an int array object. Okay. And you can also see that it's an object because when I put it here and I put down the button, I see a number of methods that I can call. And this is actually not a method, this is an attribute which I can directly access. So if you remember, I think I said you should have your attributes private. This is accessible, it's not private. So this actually violates that rule. And yeah, so this is also a very old construct and shows us one place where Java itself violates the rules of good object-oriented design. But we just have to live with it anyway. So what this does, and we will use it very soon, is it gives us the number of like the length of the array, like in this case 4. Okay, so if this is 3 here, my ints dot length should return 3. And in a minute you will see what we use it for. Let's remove the int because I want to continue with the persons. Now I want to fill this array. And the way this is done, again we need the brackets, we need them a lot of times, is I say 0 here. Oh, I said person. Of course this is wrong, we don't have a person. We have only this one object, persons. And the type is person array. So it's not a person, it's a person array object. Okay, and here we can say new, caps lock, new person. What this does is it creates a new person object in memory and puts a reference to this person, which is like a remote control, a way to access the person, into the array at position 0, which is the first position. Let's copy and paste that 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So position 1, position 2, position 3. Okay. If I would say position 4, which we don't have, I would again get an error, which we'll talk about in detail when I introduce exceptions, which is again a new big topic. Okay, so, and when you have done that, what you can also do is you can do crazy stuff like at position 3, put the object that is in the persons array at position whatever, 0 or 1 or whatever, right? Because whenever you write down array at position, as it contains a person, it's exactly the same as if you would say person, my person equals to new person. So now I created a person and this object was assigned to this variable, to this reference variable. And I can also do it like this. So now this variable can access that object as well as, oh, there's a typo, persons at position 3 can also access the same object. So we have like two references, two like remote controls to this one object. Yeah, and you can do also the opposite. You can say my person equals to, I don't know, something. Let's take 2 persons at position 2, which means the object that is at this position, the reference to it will be assigned to the reference variable my person. So this my person object now should still be here, if I'm not wrong. I mean, this really gets confusing, so I mean, I'm just explaining this so that you get the hang of it, but in reality, don't make it too complex, because you see, the more complex, the more bugs you could introduce. Okay, so I hope you get the hang of it. One more thing I might mention. Of course, no one forces you to really define, to set an object at each position. Now, when I left out position 1, this position is empty. So what does that mean? What we say is, at position 1, there is null, because null is the word like for nothing. So there is nothing. There is no reference. If we access it, we get an exception, because Java will not know what to do. Okay. So that much about null, which we could also specifically do, by the way. We could also null it, it's called. This is the wrong button, sorry. Yeah, so null you can also write. So this is like put nothing here. Or here. That would mean at the beginning you have the new person object at position 2. Later on you kind of throw the reference away, and if no reference exists to an object anymore, in Java there is something called a garbage collector. I will talk specifically about the garbage collector very soon in a specific lesson only about the garbage collector. So this one is smart and will throw away that object, will clean up the memory for us. This is really a cool feature of Java. In other languages like C++, this doesn't exist. And so you have to take care of cleaning up the memory by yourself, which is really not fun. So this is really one of the coolest features of Java. But anyway, I guess I'm going too far. Let's make this more simple again. Because what I actually want to do is now, I want to take the for loop and combine that with the arrays and introduce the for each loop. But let's start easy. Let's first of all go to the regular for loop, take that, put it here, and now we have, let's remove all that. Now all we have is an object of person array called persons, and we have this for loop that may create for whatever, in this case persons, and so we will use that dynamically. So because I will change while we go through the loop. We'll start with 0, will be 1, 2, 3. So we can say persons at position I. And this is really a cool thing now, because this means in this one line, let me clean this up. So we create each time an object of type person, and we put it into the array dynamically at position I. So this will on the fly fill the whole array with persons. And what we can also do is, in a different loop, but also just in the same loop, we can access this object by saying persons at position I and call some method on it, like hello world, that we created in an earlier lesson. Okay, I think I have not introduced you how to print something on the console, but maybe I should not do this now because I guess I feel it gets confusing with all this stuff with arrays, but would be handy now to show you that this can print out a name or something for each person, but maybe I will do this in a later lesson. Okay, so just believe me, if we would print that, we could like print hello and then a person name for each person. Okay, this is already nice, but it gets nicer with a new loop, the for each loop. And this is not so much different from the regular for loop. It was introduced only in Java 5, and this works like that. Person, and then colon, and then persons. So what this does is it automatically, under the hood, it does everything that this for int I does. And now we can also access person.helloworld. Of course, this requires, because now we are using it, so this requires that this has already run. Let me think. Yeah, so this is only for like reading it. For filling it, no, for filling it I wouldn't use it, because you have to specifically say what you want to do. Because if this is empty, this would also be empty. Okay, so but we can call person hello world on it. And see how much nicer this is? Really condensed. So this is the for each loop. And the for each loop is like, besides arrays, there's also other constructs, other container types, which I'll also soon introduce. Like collections, really a cool topic, because they're even more powerful than just arrays. And so this for each loop also works with these collections, whatever that is, and it does whatever is required, and it also does it in a very smart way. So it's really smart to use that for each loop, not only because it's more condensed, but also because it's a performant and proper way of doing it, because Java will assist you in doing it. Okay, so I think this pretty much rounds it. Oh, no, there is, have I or have I not? Sorry, I don't know. Have I told you? I think I promised and then I didn't do it. Persons.length. This attribute, which is not private, I think it's public, yeah, it should be public. This gives us dynamically the for. So, I mean, here we know that it's for, but just imagine what can also be is you have a method which just gets a parameter and you don't know its size, so you couldn't say for. And so this just dynamically takes the length that you need. And as you see in this loop, we don't even need it because this is dynamically calculated by Java for you, which of course also does the person.length in the background. At least this is what I assume. Okay. So, thanks for watching and see you next time. Wait! There is actually one more thing. I would be very happy if you could leave me some feedback by adding a comment or clicking on the like button below this video. Thanks a lot and see you next time.